Welcome to this YouTube channel. In this video we are going to talk about 10 things to know about women's rights movement in Iran. So before starting this video, like this video, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for future updates. Women's rights are severely restricted in Iran, to the point where women are even forbidden from watching men's sports in stadiums. That ban includes Iran's national obsession, volleyball. Human Rights Watch is launching a new campaign, #Watch4Women, to support Iranian women fighting this ugly discrimination. What we're asking is simple, that the International Volleyball Federation, known as the FIVB, uphold its own rules, and agree not to allow Iran to host future tournaments, unless it allows Iranian women to attend. Here are 10 facts on women's rights movement in Iran. Number 10. Though the WOI was patroned by Princess Ashraf, the Shah's twin sister, Iranian women and the WOI had to fight for every improvement in their lives. The Women's Organization of Iran was a non-profit grassroots organization working mainly through volunteers. Its goals were to encourage women's education for change, to work towards securing economic independence for women, and at the same time to remain within the spirit of Islam and the cultural traditions of the nation. It worked through local branches and women's centers, which provided useful services for women, literacy classes, vocational training, counseling, sports and cultural activities and childcare. Number 9. After the Iranian Revolution in February 1979, the status of women changed substantially. The massive participation of women in the 1978-79 revolution was in part a result of the mobilization efforts of women's organization in the preceding decades, including the WOI's activities in the late 1960s and 70s, during which women had gained consciousness of their own collective political power, and understood the need for women to assert themselves. Women marched in support of a freer, more egalitarian government. With passage of time, some of the rights that women had gained under Shah were systematically removed through legislation, such as the forced wearing of the hijab, particularly the chador. Soon after the revolution, there were rumors of plans for forced hijab, and abolition of some women's rights protected by Family Protection Act, conceived to be against Islam. The rumors were denied by some state officials and many women refused to accept it. Not long after, however, the rumors were realized. Number 8. For the first time since the revolution, several women succeeded in 1997 in getting into a stadium to watch a soccer match. Female legal consultants have been introduced in special family courts. 1 million signatures for the repeal of discriminatory laws notable campaign was launched in 2006, to collect 1 million signatures in support of changing discriminatory laws against women in Iran, and reforming of family laws, to ask Parliament for the revision and reform of current laws which discriminate against women. Another campaign was Stop Stoning Forever. By all accounts, the degree of mobilization and consciousness among women in Iran is remarkable. The women's rights movement is vibrant and well organized. The movement has also been credited with very smart use of information and communication technologies. However, the active participation of many women in the revolution helped awaken many women about their political potential, and many middle-class women acted increasingly to support women's rights. Increasing vocal opposition to policies which sanctioned polygamy, temporary marriage, free divorce for men, and child custody to fathers also took hold. A growing trend of women began to interpret Islam in more gender egalitarian ways, with the entry of more women in the public sphere, and limitation of discourse to Islamic parameters. Growing activism and publicity brought some legal remedies to the women's struggle, for example limits on a husband's right to prevent his wife from taking a job, and a new marriage contract which gave women the right to divorce. Judges became more sympathetic to women's issues because of the hardship, and when some reforms did not make it through the legislative process, the government tried to ameliorate some of the injustices, and gave instructions to the courts on how to do so. Number 7. Xanan Magazine is a monthly women's magazine published in Iran, founded in 1992. It is the only Persian women's magazine in the country. The magazine ceased publication in 2008, but was relaunched on the 29th of May 2014. In September 2014, its founder and editor Shala Shirkat was charged in Iran's press court, part of the Islamic Revolutionary Court, for promoting un-Islamic and obsolete views, and in April 2015, publication of the magazine was again suspended. Xanan focused on the concerns of Iranian women with an Islamic point of view, and had intentions of protecting and promoting their rights. However, the monthly magazine tested the political waters with its coverage of reform politics, domestic abuse, and sex. Article topics covered controversial issues from domestic abuse to plastic surgery. It argued that gender equality was Islamic and that religious literature had been misread and misappropriated by misogynists. Mahangaz Kar, Shala Lahiji, and Shala Shirkat, the editors of Xanan, led the debate on women's rights and demanded reforms. The leadership did not respond but, for the first time, since the revolution, did not silence the movement. Number 6. Iranian feminists generally fall into two camps, when it comes to the women's rights movement in Iran, post-1979. Some believe that Islamization has resulted in the marginalizing of women. Others believe that through the dynamic nature of Islamic law, known as Sharia, a unique consciousness of feminism has been formed in Iran. Both these views have been challenged. Among the women's rights activists in Iran, feminism means different things. A major contrast is seen between secular feminists, and those who are dubbed Islamic feminists, on the nature of feminism. Number 5. Islamic feminists, or more accurately Muslim feminists, are women rights advocates who seek to improve the status of women through more favorable interpretations of Islamic law, supporting what is called dynamic interpretation (feqhe puya) in Persian. Some Muslim feminists prefer the term indigenous feminists, feminist-e-bumi. Despite the disagreements among different factions, when it comes to the improvement of women's conditions, feminist groups have shown that they can cooperate with an emphasis on common ground. The chief editor of Xanan Magazine, Shala Shirkat, for example, a woman with definite religious beliefs, invited prominent Muslim women rights activist Xanan Abadi, and prominent secular women rights activist Mahangaz Kar, to write on women's issues in her magazine. These activists have also taken advantage of new technologies in their efforts for women's rights. Mahangaz Kar, for example, has taught classes and written manuals on women's rights defense for Tavana, e-learning institute for Iranian civil society. Number 4. My Stealthy Freedom is an online movement that was commenced in 2014 by Masih Alinejad, an Iranian-born journalist and activist based in the United Kingdom and the United States. This movement started from a Facebook page, My Stealthy Freedom, where women from Iran post their photos without scarves, and by the end of 2016 page has surpassed 1 million Facebook likes. Initiative has received wide international and national coverage. Hopes were high that the re-election of Iranian President Hassan Rouhani would see the abolishment of the compulsory hijab law, which has never happened. To this end, Alinejad launched White Wednesdays, where women protest the law by wearing white veils on Wednesdays. Men, in solidarity, tie white ribbons around their wrists. Number 3. By 1978 nearly 40% of girls 6 and above were literate. Over 12,000 literacy corps women were teaching in villages, 33% of university students were women, and more women than men took the entrance exam for the School of Medicine. 333 women were elected to local councils, 22 women were elected to parliament, and 2 served in the Senate. There were 1 cabinet minister for women's affairs, 3 sub-cabinet under-secretaries, 1 governor, an ambassador, and 5 women mayors. Iran has also established itself as playing a leading role for women's rights among developing countries, introducing ideas and funds for the UN Regional Center for Research and Development for Asia and the Pacific, and the International Center for Research on Women. Number 2. Despite much opposition by clerics, the suffrage was gained in 1963, when a national referendum reflected general support for the 6-point reform program known as the White Revolution, which included women's right to vote and to stand for public office. 6 women were elected to parliament, Majlis. In the late 1960s, women entered the diplomatic corps, the judiciary and police force, and the Revolutionary Service Corps, education, health and development. In 1968, Farah Kru Parsa became Minister of Education. She was the first woman to hold a cabinet position. In 1969 the judiciary was opened to women, and 5 female judges were appointed, including future Nobel Prize winner Xanan Abadi. Women were elected to town, city and county councils. Number 1. Women's first strides were in education. In 1928, they were provided with financial support to study abroad. In 1935 they were admitted to Tehran University, and in 1944 education became compulsory. In 1932, the Second Congress of Women of the East was organized in Tehran, and Iranian women activists met with activists from Lebanon, Egypt, India and Iraq. Dowlat Abadi was the secretary. In 1936, Reza Shah Pahlavi set the mandatory unveiling of women known as Kashf-e-Hijab, a highly controversial policy which caused many women to simply stay inside the house rather than go out in a veil and be subjected to harassment from the police, but also caused desegregation in some sectors of society. What do you think of this video? Do let us know down in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video and want to hear from us again, be sure to hit that subscribe button before you go.